See, I was thinking about making a video on the Wii today, but then I remembered that a couple people asked for a book review, and I said sure. So we're doing a book review today. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Today, we're going to be reviewing a book I read. It's called 1984 by George Orwell. You've probably heard of it. It's a bit well known. So yeah, that's going to be the topic of today's book review. I might do more of these in the future if it's fun. I don't think very many people watch this, but making videos is fun, so whatever. So yeah, sit back, get yourself a nice massive bag of perfectly salted popcorn. I got this at work for only $1. Crazy. It's like so much freaking popcorn in here. And it is indeed perfectly salted. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. We need to review this book. So basically, like 6 months ago, I started reading this. Now, stay with me here. Because I started reading it, and then I got bored and I stopped reading it. And also, I had to return it to the library. And then I picked it up again before quarantine started. Because I was like, I might as well finish reading this. And then quarantine happened. And so then I had, plenty of time just in quarantine to finish this book. So I finished it. I've read the whole thing. And it's great. Basically, this takes place in a world. Well, you see, this book was written in like 1949. And then it's called 1984 because it predicted the future. Kind of. It predicted like a dystopian world where everything just kind of sucks. And I don't want to get too much into it because as you read through the book, it describes the setting more. Like when you start out, you don't really know much about the setting, and it's kind of weird, but then as you get further in, it describes it. So I don't want to spoil too much because I think you should read this book. In ways, it's just the way that it's written, it kind of describes a world that's slowly becoming more and more apparent because it's a world where surveillance is just everywhere. People are only being told what to think and sort of thing. And at the time, these were like crazy ideas, but some of these things are slowly showing up in like the real world. I don't want to get too spoilery, but So yeah, read the book. It's a good book, but if you've already read it, or if you just don't care, then stick around for when I start talking spoilers, and I'll let you know when I start talking spoilers. So basically, yeah, I'm not doing spoilers yet. I'll tell you when. Where the book is based around, where is it? Right, Winston Smith. That's his name. That's the main character. Winston Smith. He lives in Oceania, in London. London is part of Oceania. And, later in the book they describe what Oceania is. But all we know right now is that he lives in London. And, he goes every day to work. I forget, he works at the, it's one of the ministries. I don't remember which one it is. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think he's Ministry of Truth. I'm sorry, I'm getting off of it. There's all these ministries, basically. There's like these towers. They're like giant pyramids in this that are like over the city, and that's where the people work. And the people that work on these, there's a whole class system. There's where Winston is like in the basic middle part. He's just with all the other workers. They're all part of the party, and the party controls every single aspect of daily life. They tell everyone the news. They tell everyone what's going on in the world. They give people their food. They tell people how much of the food they're getting, what food they're getting, and then they control what they do. They're always watching everybody. They always know what you're doing. You have no privacy. Like even like sleeping, going to the bathroom, everything is monitored. So, if you start doing something that they don't like, then it's kind of this rumor that no one really knows until they get captured. But people just are like, huh, Joe disappeared. But the thing is, it's like, instead of, people are like, oh, my neighbor Joe is gone. But then, you start over time, the party just makes you think Joe never existed. He's just gone. So that's the world that 1984 takes place in. So yeah, that's kind of like the basic setting. It's this really weird dystopian world. So I'm gonna talk about like the end of the book and like spoiler stuff that happens. So basically, go away now. Go read the book if you want to, or if you just don't care or you've already read the book, stick around. Anyway, so as we go on, Winston, he goes through his life, and towards the beginning of the book, he starts writing in a journal. which is something you're not allowed to do. Because all historical records that are not in line with what the party believes are fake. So, like, nobody really knows how the party became a thing. Everyone's just like, yeah, the party's always existed forever. You know, they invented the airplane, they did all this, which we later find out isn't actually true, but it doesn't really matter because the party says it, and if the party says it and there's no evidence that's not true, then it must be true, right? This is what makes the book really crazy because the party controls everything. They control the past, the present, and the future. Because, if they say, hey, that guy, he spoke out against us, we're not just going to kill him, we're going to remove him from existence. People are going to forget he ever existed. And they do this through crazy stuff. There's an entire way of speaking. It's called newspeak. There's an entire thing at the end of the book where they describe how newspeak works, they kind of just explain it in the book. It's this idea of just saying things, and there's certain words they have. It's crazy. There's a thing, it's called doublethink, which in the context of the book, they say it's having two conflicting ideas in your mind at the same time and wholly believing both of them. It's kind of hard to think of an example specifically in real life, but I don't know, it's like, you believe that, the party is good and that the party is bad at the same time. That's kind of like a more basic example, but I don't know, there's all sorts of crazy things in the book, and I feel like I'm just saying the same things over and over, but it's really good. There's also an afterwards by a different guy who you can read. Yeah. They've kind of just, the way that, eventually they get to a point in the book where they describe what the world is. So basically, the party tells people that, like, oh, we're Oceania, right? And we're at war with East Asia. And, then our ally is Eurasia. And that's all it tells you for the first little part of the book. And then, they're like, yeah, we've always been at war with East Asia, and we've never been at war with Eurasia. And then halfway through the book, it just flips. And they start telling people, oh yeah, by the way, we're at war with Eurasia, and our ally is East Asia. That's how it's always been. And, anyone who says, hey, last week you guys were saying it was East, like, what you guys said it was different, that person is now gone. They never existed. And now we're in this state where people realize that, if I just follow the party, I'll be all good. And the thing is that over time, it gets to a point where people don't even realize it. People don't realize that they're just blindly following the party. I don't know. It's hard to describe this book because it's just written in such a way. It's insane. Read the book. It's really good. It's a good book. And also there are little things that he kind of predicted. One example I know specifically is that in the book they have these things called telescreens. They're basically TVs, but the TVs are always on. Like, they can turn the volume down, but never off, and it's always monitoring them. And for a real-life example of this, in North Korea, they actually have TVs that are constantly displaying propaganda, and the people there can't turn them off. They can turn them down, but they cannot turn them off. It's crazy, because George Orwell literally predicted this in his book. It's wild. So yeah, also the countries are Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia. Oceania is mostly like the Americas and the UK, also Australia, I believe. That's all Oceania. That's all controlled by one thing, but nobody knows what they are. It's just like, yeah, I live in London in Oceania, but I don't know what that means. That would be for Winston's case and everyone he knows. So the book actually reveals this at a later point. Winston finds this out, this information. And also, I believe Eurasia is like Europe and Russia, and then East Asia is just like China and that sort of area. And then Africa is like the war area, because all of the three major groups are in a constant state of warfare. This makes it so that people are always working, and they're always in this very patriotic state, where it's like, yeah, my country's winning the war. We're always winning the war. That's great. And it's like, oh, we're losing the war. That's fine. We'll win it. We'll win the next battle. So it keeps the people patriotic and into the state where they're just always hailing the party, and they'll do whatever the party says. And there's this constant state of warfare where the war is always raging on, so that there's never any peacetime. Because in peacetime, the state might, fall apart and people might start getting ideas. So it's this crazy thing where the leaders know what they're doing, very, like, down to a point. They know exactly everything that's going on, and they can control everything. And it can just keep going like this forever. And once Winston starts to figure this out, then he actually finds out he's been tricked. He thinks he's like, oh, I'm learning the party secrets. I'm going to take them out. Turns out the guy who told him these secrets was actually working for the party all along and tricked him. And then he is taken to the Ministry of, I believe it's, oh, I forget all, Ministry of Love. That's what it is. Because all the ministries are called different things. Winston works at the Ministry of Truth, which is where that's where he destroys evidence, essentially. That's his job. He rewrites evidence. They give him this thing. It's like, hey, this said this happened. Make it say that this did not happen. And then he destroys the old evidence, writes up new things, and bam, that's now history. That's the truth. So, the Ministry of Truth tells lies. That's the thing. The Ministry of Peace is what deals with wars. They essentially wage war. So it's like, the Ministry of Peace wages wars. It's the opposite. And that's part of Newspeak. I believe that's the term doublethink, where it's like conflicting ideas in your head that you believe both of them hold. And also I gotta find the phrase. Yes, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. These are the ideals of the party, and it's usually followed with a picture of Big Brother. Big Brother is like the leader. It's what everyone looks up to. He's a guy, he has a big bushy mustache, and there are posters of him all around everywhere, and they're saying, like, Big Brother is watching you. And it's the idea of, like, and the thing is that people learn to love Big Brother, because he's just the greatest, he's the leader. And then, I don't know, Big Brother is weird, but he's just another thing where it keeps people in line, keeps them doing what they're doing, and keeps them devoted to the party. Now, like I said, eventually, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place with this video. I should have structured this better. That's on me, but whatever. This book, it's just good. Anyway, Winston gets to a point where he starts to figure out how things are working. The party captures him, takes him to the Ministry of Love. The Ministry of Love deals with people who have committed thought crimes, which is thinking against the party. And they notice this because of, him trying to defy the party. He has a love interest, which is, basically the party like assigns people husbands and wives and tells them when to have children. However, Winston meets a girl named Julia, and they go off and do things. Yeah, that's the kind of boring part of the book. That's where I stopped reading, because I'm like, this is boring. But then after that, it gets good. So it's like the low point in the middle. Anyway, he and Julia are doing things. The party doesn't like this. They think that the party doesn't know. The party does know, because they're the party. And so Winston gets captured. And then they take him to the Ministry of Love. The Ministry of Love is where they deal with the thought crime people. And essentially they just break him down to the point where he has essentially nothing left. They torture him, and they keep tricking him into stuff. They say, like, he's like, the guy torturing him is like, hey, Winston, how many fingers am I holding up? And he says, and Winston's like, well, you're holding up 2 fingers. Then he tortures him. And he's like, I'm holding up 3 fingers, am I not? And Winston's like, no, you're not. And he keeps torturing him until he eventually says, yes, you are holding up 3 fingers. And he says, like, what if the party says the sky is red? And he's like, Winston's like, but I know the sky is blue. And he electrocutes him again. He's like, the party says the sky is red. And eventually they keep doing this over and over until Winston believes that the sky is red. So they torture him and to make him into the perfect party-living thing. And like the guy torturing him says, before we kill you, you will love Big Brother. And, throughout the book, Winston is saying, I hate Big Brother. Big Brother's the worst. I want him to go away. And then right at the end of the book, like the very last couple pages, Winston is saying, looks up the ceiling. There's a poster of Big Brother. He says, I love Big Brother. I've always loved Big Brother. And then they shoot him and kill him because give him to the thought crime. It's crazy. The book, it's really just, it's good. It predicts this dystopian world where everything is meticulous and designed in a way to just break the human spirit down so that humans will do whatever the party wants them to do. And it's only becoming more and more apparent as we go on in the future of regimes who are trying to do things like this. It's it's a good book. I've said this multiple times. Just read it. It's really good. And maybe if you already read it, maybe you learned a thing, and that's really the point. Book review. It's a good book. That's all I gotta say. So if anyone did watch this, thank you. Read the book. I encourage you to do so if you haven't. And yeah, bye everybody.